In this tutorial, we're going to show you how to make a bouncing ball. And anyway, before we start, I wanted to show you, how you should manage your files. So you want to first download this file, bouncing ball .ai, it's an Adobe Illustrator file, to your desktop. And once you do that, you want to make a new folder, and you want to place this in there. And then we'll label this folder, bouncing ball exercise. Okay. Now, the thing is that this is where we're going to save our After Effects file. And this is key because a lot of times, I'll start something and I'll just leave my file on the desktop, and then when I'm trying to put everything together, After Effects will not recognize that file because it won't know where it's at. And so, it's so important to start with creating a folder first for your After Effects file and place the contents of your resources in there. So anyway, let's go into After Effects. Yep, see, it's giving me a warning there because I started building this. So what I'm going to do is let's go to File and New and do New Project. And we don't need to save that. Okay. We're going to go to New Composition from Footage. This little icon here. We're going to look for Bouncing Ball Exercise. We're going to open up that folder by clicking it twice there. Now you don't want to open it yet. You want to click on the file and then import as. You want to come down to here, and you're going to go to Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. And hopefully I explained this in the first tutorial, but what happens is you don't want to bring it in as footage because you won't have any layers to work with, okay? So you want to always, if you have an Illustrator file or a Photoshop file, you want to bring it in as Composition, Retain Layer Sizes, okay? You can go Open. Now let's go to our composition settings and make sure everything's set up correctly. And we got 30, frame rate is 30, time duration is going to be 5 for this, 5 seconds. Then I'm going to double click up here in the project folder. We're going to double click the icon, and therefore it brings it into the composition window and brings it into our timeline. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the layers, and I'm going to turn off the eye. So we're going to be, I got multiple white balls here, by the way. And I'm going to turn off the black square here. And then I'm going to go to the ground layer. Okay, so now I've turned off all those layers. And we're going to work with just the ground layer. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to work with scale. So we're going to make this ground appear. And I'm going to go over to the 10th frame mark here. And we're going to hit the S key, so it brings up the scale. And what I'm going to do is just click on the stopwatch. So that's at 10 seconds, it's going to, at 10 frames, it's going to look like that. Now let's drag our timeline indicator over to the beginning. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to unclick the constrained proportions. I'm going to unclick this chain, and I'm going to scrub the first setting, which is has to do with our width. I'm going to scrub it down to 0. There we go. If you have a problem scrubbing, you can always click inside there, type in 0, and hit Enter. So what's going to happen is in our animation is this is all of a sudden going to appear out of nowhere. Okay? Now, let's go up to our black square, and we'll click on the eye. And so we're on layer 6 there. And then we're going to bring over the layer, so it'll start here. So you won't see it till there. But the other thing we're going to do is we're going to make it drop out of the sky. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to drag the timeline indicator over to the 20th frame here. And let's click on P. So it brings up the position, and click on the stopwatch. Okay? Now let's drag the timeline indicator back over to where the layer starts here. And we're going to drag this up. And, oops. So in order to drag this up, you've got to use the selection tool. I just had a problem for a second. And we're going to drag it up and hold down our shift key. I keep having some problems with my keyboard there. There we go. All right, so I'm going to drag it up, hold down my shift key. So you start dragging and then hold down your shift key. And then it'll go straight up. So you don't have to scrub it. Now, you could scrub the position here, so I'll do that. But I didn't do that because I wanted to go a little faster. So now you see what happens. So this opens up, and then our box drops in. Okay? Now let's go up to white ball 1, which is layer 5. Click on the eye. We can leave that there. I'm just being picky. I'm going to pull this on over here. But what we're going to do is we're going to set up the position of this ball. We'll start, so we got to use, click on the P key, so it brings the position. I'm not going to click the stopwatch yet, because first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it outside, like this. Then I'm going to hit the stopwatch. So it's going to originate from outside, top left, and then I'm going to drag over our timeline indicator to the 1 second mark. And then I'm going to bring our ball down so it hits that black box, like that. Then I'm going to go to the 10th frame, and I'm going to drag it up to the right, like this. So now let's drag our timeline indicator to see what is happening here. Now the only problem with this is our ball, is swooping in. That's not how, it would look. The ball needs to, we don't want it to swoop, so we're going to actually change the direction of this line. Okay, there's Bezier curves involved, just like in Illustrator, and anytime you use paths. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see a bit better. We're going to click on the center there, and this little gray dot, it may be hard for you to see, but it appears. I'm going to click on it and start moving it, and you can see the handles appear. And I'm just changing it so it will come down. We'll see how it comes down now. It comes down just like that. Now, we don't want it to swoop. So what I'm going to do is this second handle down here, I'm going to drag up like that, and then let's take a look and see what it does here. Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and zoom out a little bit, so we got a little bit more room there to play around with. And I'm going to drag this handle out at the starting point, so it kind of comes in like that, and drag this out a little bit. So now let's see what that looks like. Oh, that's kind of cool. Works very well. All right, so next, I'm going to click on the eye for the layer 4, which is our dark blue square, but I'm going to drag over where it's going to come in to our picture. So it will appear after the ball leaves. So that square is going to turn into our dark blue square. Okay? Now, let's go to our white ball again. And so this is another white ball. This is our white ball 2 on layer 3. And we can drag it over as far as where it comes in at on the timeline. Okay? But what we also need to do is drag it outside. So make sure you're on that layer. We're going to click the P key and drag it up before we hit the stopwatch. Now we go down and hit the stopwatch. So it inserts a keyframe right there. Okay? Now we're going to come over a little bit farther to frame 20, and we're going to drag it back to the box and do the same thing as we did to the other one, okay? So it's going to hit right there, and then we'll go to the 2 second mark, and we're going to drag it out. Okay, try to get close. And we'll zoom in just a little bit more here. And click on these Bezier curves so that we can actually handle this and move this along a bit. So it will actually look like the last one. Now, sometimes it's hard to get to these curves. If for some reason you can't, you can move your timeline so your object's at a different part. And then if you're having a hard time getting to the handle, you can find it better sometimes, okay? So now this works very nicely. Okay, cool. All right, so next we go up to the blue square. We have dark blue square. This is going to be our blue square, or our lighter blue square. It's layer 2. we're going to drag it over as far as where it's going to appear at, right where that ball left. Okay, so when we drag the timeline indicator, you'll see it change right there like that. Okay, that's great. Now we're going to make the white ball 3 appear, and we'll just drag over where it's going to appear out on the timeline. And then again, make sure you're on white ball 3 or layer 1, and then hit the P key. And then before anything else happens, before you hit that stopwatch, drag it outside, okay? Then come down and hit the stopwatch, so insert the keyframe. Then drag your timeline indicator over to 10, to the 10th frame within 2 seconds, and drag it down so it hits the box. And then drag it over to the 20th frame there, and then drag it out. And fortunately, it kind of marks where everything's at. And so, again, I'm going to go in there and adjust these handles to act like the other ones. Okay. Also, these handles tell you how fast things move. The closer in, they'll move a little faster. Further out, they're a little slower. But, for this animation, we won't have to play with that too much. We just want to change the direction of the path that it's on, okay? There we go. Now, that looks nice. Okay, so let me drag up so that we can see our timeline better. So we got a little bit more room here. Now, the next thing that's going to happen in our animation is our squares are going to disappear. And so we'll go down to layer 2 here, and we're going to hit the P key, and we hit the stopwatch, and then we'll move over to the 3-second mark, and we start dragging this thing up, but hold down the shift key. And so I start dragging now, hold down the shift key, let go, and so what's going to happen is, boom, that's going to go up, okay? Now, let's go down to the dark blue, layer 4, dark blue square. Hit the P key. All right, hit the stopwatch, so insert the keyframe, and then we'll go over to the 10th frame within that, and then we start dragging and hold down that shift key once you start dragging, and so this is going to go up like that, okay? And now, what we want to do is we want to go down to the black square, so layer 6, and we'll do the same thing again. Hit the P key. Oh, it's already clicked because we had it come in. So what we're going to need to do is, if we start dragging it up, so let's say I start dragging this thing up right now. We're going to undo this. But this is what's going to happen if I just do this. It's going to be a little weird here. So if we watch this thing's going to be floating up during the whole thing. So what I want to do is I want to stop it from floating up. And what I want to do is we'll just do Control-Z, or Command-Z. I'm on Mac, but Control-Z, since we're going to be on PCs. And before we do anything, before we move it, we don't want to click on the stopwatch, because if we click on the stopwatch, it's going to turn off all the keyframes. What we want to do is go over here, and this is add and remove keyframe at the current time. So we want to add a keyframe. So basically, these keyframes are the same, but it will keep that locked there. Now, let's move this over to the 20th frame, and then drag upwards, okay? And we'll just click on it and drag it up out of the picture, hold down the shift key. I think that's far enough, because as long as it's outside the frame, that's the most important thing, okay? I sometimes get too picky, and I want things just right on top of each other, even though it doesn't matter. That's just my nature. But anyway, next what I'm going to do is we're going to drag over to the 4th frame. And in this frame, what we're going to do is the ground. Well, first of all, let's go back over to here. Okay? And so we're going to go back to where we're at. And I'm going to go down to the ground layer. And I'm going to add a keyframe. I'm not going to click on the stopwatch. I'm going to click on this little diamond here again, so it will mark that. Now let's move over to the 4-second mark, like I was originally wanting to do. And now what I'm going to do is, the constraint proportions are off, which is good. I am going to do this. I am going to scrub it down to where it becomes more of a square, like that. Okay? Then I'm going to hold down my shift. I'm going to hold down my shift key and then hit P. So we're going to put in a position for this, and we're going to hit our stopwatch. And then we're going to go to the 10th frame here, and we're going to just drag up like that. Okay? So this thing's going to become a square, and it's going to move up. All right? Now, we're going to do the sky. So the sky, we're going to hit the S key. All right? We're going to put in a keyframe by hitting the stopwatch. We're going to uncheck constraint proportions, and this time we're going to come over here and drag this the second 100 there. Because we're going to change its dimension this way, and we're going to change it so that it kind of zooms out. So now what happens is, and we can drag, like if we don't think it's right, like let's just play this movie, okay? Because I know I've kind of done something wrong here. Yeah, I did something wrong. All right, let me go undo. Okay, Control Z. Because one of the things I wanted to do was, I put in a keyframe there. I need to move over to the 20th frame. All right, so I undid that. I'm not scrubbing. I didn't scrub. I undid what I did because I did it wrong. All right. We just want to put a keyframe in there. I'm going to turn this off for a second, so we'll remove the keyframe. But we want the sky to be as it is here, so that's why we hold down and click the stopwatch, so it puts that keyframe in there. Then we need to drag over, and then this time we're going to scrub this. So we're doing the second one there because we're doing the Y position. And we're just going to drag it down to its 0. All right. So now let's watch this. And that's what we want to happen. That looks good. Okay. So anyway, I should have saved this earlier. And what I would say to you is, it's always good if you're watching this and you haven't done it yet. You should always save a little earlier than when I do. I always, since these don't take too long, I sort of save at the last. So we want to go to Save As. We want to make sure we are in that, not the bouncing ball folder. We need to go to our desktop and look for the bouncing ball exercise folder, because that's the one you're going to be using here, okay? And then we can name our project, bouncing ball animation, or okay. Make sure you got a dot there for that. Now, click Save. Good. Now we're going to add this to our render queue. And just as we did before, we're going to go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. Click our settings, our best settings. We're going to change our resolution down to half of it. Okay. So, and then I don't think we really need to do much of anything here. We just want to make sure that's set to H.264. Okay. Click OK. And then I'm going to click over here, Output to, and we just want to make sure that gets outputted to the desktop. And so since I've already have a video, it's going to, it's marked it as ball 2.2-1, so that's fine, or underscore -1. So we're going to save it. Then we hit the render button. So now it's going to render it. And now we're finished. Okay, and then we can go to our desktop and look for our movie, and we can watch it. And if there's anything wrong, because like I said, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll watch my movie, and I like to loop it. Now I'm in QuickTime, so I have to go find the looping control here. But I'll watch it a couple of times to see if there's anything that needs to be improved, and then I can go back and make changes. But sometimes you'll find something that you go, oh, that just doesn't do it right. But anyway, that's why this exercise should look. And that's will end our tutorial.